Welcome to week 5 of our live chats here in HIM115 Medical Records and the Law. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, so this week you have a couple of new things that you need to learn about that are directly related to what you will be doing as your career or when you graduate or both or now. Okay. And the first thing that you need to learn about are subpoenas. If you haven't watched Law and Order or any of the other law and police shows, you are learning now that a subpoena is an order from a court for information. Now, most often you'll see a subpoena having somebody come to court to testify. The full name of that actually is subpoena testificatum. But what I wanted you to really learn about and know about in this class is the subpoena ducis tecum, which is a court summons ordering a person to attend a court and bring relevant documents. Ducis tecum means bring the paperwork. Okay. And as the medical coding, medical records professionals, whether you are working in a physician's office or in our program in a hospital, you may be called upon to pull information to prepare it to go to court. And if you were the one who coded that claim, or did anything with preparing those documents, you may need to go along with those papers. Normally, at first, you just send the papers. And but remember, and I believe you've learned this since day one, that medical records, healthcare records are legal documents, which means that's one of the reasons why you can't erase things. You have to initial them if it's paper, or addendum then record if it's an electronic health record, to identify what has been changed. But that is why we have such strict laws with regard to our documentation, because they are legal documents, all of it. And we in the Health Information Management Department are keepers of the legal documents. We also process the legal documents. So it's very important that you understand a subpoena ducis tecum is just for you to gather information, whatever the subpoena is asking about, and you may have to go along with it to testify, yes, these are the documentations, this is the claim form we created, whatever it might be, okay? And then you can be part of history. I don't know whose history, but history anyway. Hello, Nikki, nice to see you. Glad you could join us. Nikki?
I'm trying to hear
You
you.
can't hear me?
I can't see you.
My headset says it's connected.
Oh, let me go out and come back.
Okay.
There
All
we
right,
go.
I'll just keep talking, which is what I do.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes. Okay. So this week you were going to be talking about the types of fraud and abuse. And you may remember that we've had a couple of discussions that have involved this. And the reason why is because it's such a big deal. And it's very important that you enable yourself to stand up for what is right. And we've talked about this a couple of times, and it's hard. I know it's very hard when other people are saying, no, everybody does it, don't be such a wet blanket, whatever. The fact is that I'm trying to help you steel yourself so you can stand up for what's right. And I'm hoping that should anybody approach you to do something wrong, it's because they don't know it's wrong and you're going to educate them. Okay, so what we know is the most common types of fraud and abuse in healthcare, as you can see, are almost all with us, the coders. Okay, misrepresentation of services with incorrect codes. This is not just an issue of making a human error. Okay, this is whether it's incompetence, which we don't believe in around here, or if it's upcoding, which is purposely coding, reporting a code that's incorrect to increase the reimbursement. Okay, so this is one reason, and understand the fact that we know this is because the federal government and the fraud investigators know this, which means they're looking for this. They're looking specifically. And now, of course, they all have computers. It's very easy for them to check and double check. So you might wonder, well, how can they tell the difference between a human error? I made an honest mistake when I was typing in the code, and fraud as in criminal activity. And the way that they tell the difference is they look at claim after claim after claim. They don't look at one claim and say, oh, wrong code, you're going to jail. They look and they will tell the computer, track these claims from this office or this hospital. And they will look at sometimes as long as a year or more. So essentially is a human error, oops, I accidentally mistyped it, is going to be once in a
Hello?
while. What? Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yes.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Communication, two-way street.
Yeah,
I
I've
love
been
it.
talking. I know. I just came from the dentist. I just got a tooth pull, a wisdom tooth. So
Oh, are you okay? Did you have anesthesia? Are you right?
no, no, he just numbed the site, so it
Just a
wasn't that bad.
local?
So
Okay.
yeah, just a local.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
I'll keep
So
an eye on you as
um,
you're driving home.
I have
Question?
now the thing about the one that I have. Yeah, the question. Now we're talking about tort and all that, right?
Well, we're
Is
talking
that
specifically
classified?
about fraud and abuse, but we can talk about tort. What do you want to talk about tort?
Okay. Explain unintentional tort when as it pertains to healthcare.
Well, unintentional, of course, means you did not do it on purpose. It was a mistake.
Okay.
So that would be like what I said before about a human error. Um, you accidentally put in a typo. And you know how sometimes when you're
Mm-hmm.
writing a paper and or a letter or an email and you misspell a word, but it creates another
Mm-hmm.
word so that spell
Yeah.
check won't find it because it's a legitimate word. It's just not the word that you wanted. That would be an
Uh huh.
unintentional tort, is an unintentional
Okay.
mistake, which is why I tried to get you guys. Now is the time to start building that habit of checking and double checking your work before you hit that send button, before you hit that submit button. You find your own mistakes, excuse me, and you correct it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Love that. I love when things make sense.
Yes.
Okay.
Because I went over that, and then I know it touched on chapter. Was it chapter 4? Touched on fraud and misdemeanors and criminal law and all that.
Chapter 4 was last week. So yes, this
Yeah.
week we're going into chapter 5.
Okay.
Okay, but yes, it's all related to each other. It's all the different
Okay.
parts of the court system. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Because I've just started chapter 5.
Okay, good. All right. So also we're going to discussing billing for services not rendered. Now that's just flat out not right. But here's the thing. If the doctor documents that he did or she did something, and you code it and put it in a claim, then that's an unintentional tort, because you would not have any way of knowing that the patient was never in the office. However, for us, this more likely covers the issue of the doctor does not document it. He verbally tells you, oh, yes, I gave her a flu shot. And you say, but it's not documented. And the doctor says, well, I'll write it in later. You can just put it on the claim form now so we don't lose time. That is an absolute no-no. And if you haven't heard it before, I'm going to tell it to you now. That is why we have a motto, which is, if it's not documented, it did not happen. If it did not happen, you cannot code it. Flat out.
Now, is that the same as that discussion question you had that time where the doctor did one procedure but put it down to something else so that it could be, would it be a lower cost? Would that fall under that category?
This is, it's like its cousin, okay? It's one thing if the doctor documents something improperly and you code it based on what is documented, versus the doctor verbally telling you and does not document it.
Okay.
Okay. And I'll tell you what the number one biggest reason why. Excuse me, what the difference is here. Okay. When the physician documents something and signs off on it, you now have evidence to take to court to say, Your Honor, the doctor documented he gave the patient a flu shot, which is why, excuse me, which is why I coded it and put it on the claim form. Very legitimate on your part. Okay. However, I want you to think about the kind of person, excuse me, the kind of person who comes to you and says, I know I didn't document it. I forgot. I'll put it later. Just for now, go ahead and code it and put it on the claim form. You do not have any documentation to back you up. And now the fact that you are coding something and putting it on a claim form is all on you. Because you have no documentation to take with you into court to protect yourself. And a doctor who does something like that is not generally the character of somebody who comes up and says, Your Honor, no. I told her to do it. I knew it was illegal. My fault, not hers. He's not going to do that.
No, because if he did that, he's unethical.
Exactly. And unethical people do not care about sending somebody else to jail for their crimes. We got, I don't know how many people in jail for somebody else's crime. So don't do the crime. Okay? No matter what this person says, don't do the crime. Because if somebody talks you into doing something illegal, trust me when I say it is going to be you that suffers the consequences, and not Mr. Oh yeah, it's okay, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, we do this all the time. Okay? So if somebody comes to you and says this, you say, I'm only allowed to code what's in the documentation. If you gave the
Mm-hmm.
patient a flu shot, go ahead and update the documentation, and then I will code it. That's the law.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
All right. So sometimes, and you know what? At the end of the road, I'm going to speak for myself personally. Everybody has to do their own thing. Okay. But
Mm-hmm.
I got to tell you, I would rather work at McDonald's to to make money to put food on my table. Plus, I get to take home, cheeseburgers,
Nuggets.
right, and nuggets, and the maltas. Oh my God, the shakes! All right, but my point is, I would rather do that than keep my job as a coder for someone who is a criminal and who rips off. And you know what? It's not, oh, well, it's the big insurance companies. We're not hurting anybody, because people with that kind of attitude are the reasons why we have $500 a month insurance premiums.
Yeah.
Okay. Insurance companies don't eat that. They don't swallow that kind of loss. They just pass it along to us. And what are we going to say? No, I think my premium should be $250, not $573. Yeah. Somebody's sure going to listen to me when I say that, right? No. Okay. The second thing I want to remind you of is, especially since HIPAA, but even more so, catching people who have committed fraud in healthcare means big money for the government and for the insurance companies. I mean, billions with a B, billions of dollars have been put back into the Medicare fund because of money that they have recouped from people committing fraud against the federal government. And then remember, all of the individual private insurance companies like Aetna, Prudential, Humana, United, they all have their own fraud investigators. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
They make huge amounts of money catching people who have done fraudulent things. As well they should. Okay?
Now
So,
do now
yeah.
do doctors like the instant you know what happened with Toomey, right?
Yeah.
The, what does that fall under? Because I know it did some I think one of them was Stokes law and some other stuff that they did. What does that fall under?
What does what fall under?
Because what some of the doctors were doing, and the reason why they almost had all that trouble had to
Oh,
do,
yeah,
yeah,
I remember that. I think
because
actually
I know they got kickbacks. I know some of them getting kickbacks and some
kickbacks.
other stuff.
Okay. There are
What
two
does kickbacks
laws.
fall under?
There are two laws that was. Number one is the anti-kickback law, which
Mm-hmm.
says that physicians cannot make money off of referring a patient to a facility like an independent imaging company or a
Mm-hmm.
pathology lab. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
the and that's called the anti-kickback law.
Mm-hmm.
And it does not have to be cash money, by the way. It can be, they used to do, well, way before COVID, they used to do, they would give the doctors like a free week in Hawaii or a resort in the Caribbean. So they would give them free trips and gifts of that nature. So not necessarily cash.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, there was a big thing with that. The other law is called Stark.
Mm-hmm.
And Stark says, and they are kind of kissing cousin laws, okay? Stark
Mm-hmm.
says a physician is not permitted to send a patient to another facility for treatment when that physician has a financial interest in that facility, okay? So that means, let's say there used to be, and they're out of business now, so that's a good example, okay? There used to be a company called Boston Imaging. They were an independent imaging. So if your doctor said, "I want you to go get an X-ray or an MRI," you go to Boston Imaging, okay, with your doctor's order. Um, if the doctor bought stock in Boston Imaging, and so they owned a piece of that company, then they would benefit from sending patients there because the company would have more patients. The company would be, their revenue would be up and they would make more money, and therefore my stock would be worth more. Okay. So the reason why that is illegal is because there would be no way to know whether the patient was sent for this X-ray simply so the doctor could make more money, or the doctor could get a kickback,
Okay.
as opposed to the patient really needed an X-ray.
Okay.
Okay. So whether it's I send you there so their revenue can go up and and my stock is worth more, or whether I send you there because they're going to slip me $100 for every patient I send over, both of those things are illegal. Okay, very good question.
Okay.
Very good question. And this comes to, I don't know if you've ever heard the old saying, feathering your own nest, which
Yeah.
means I'm doing this for my own benefit, okay? And that's what both of those laws are wrapped around. Feathering their own nest is we cannot discern that the patient really needed that X-ray, or did you just want to make an extra $100? Okay. Good questions. Good questions. Okay. So I want you to go through these things and really understand that you have control over preventing some of this fraud by refusing to participate in it. And like I said before, that can be very challenging sometimes. It can be hard to say, I know you're my boss. I know you own this practice, or I know you're my supervisor in this hospital, but I'm sorry, federal law prohibits me from doing that. And I don't want to get me or this facility in trouble. See, then you just take it away from you and broaden that out, okay? But when we all do our part by standing up to preventing fraud, that's one notch better that our whole healthcare system gets better. And that's the only way we can crack into it, and you don't even have to carry a gun, and you don't have to worry about getting hurt physically anyway. Okay. But and I know that we've discussed this before, but the fact is even if you get fired for refusing to do something illegal, that is going to put you in a better position of getting another job than for getting fired because you did something illegal. Does that make sense?
It does.
Good. Good. Okay. So this week's discussion is a little different than the one we had with Dr. Horton. This is, I want you to really think about what you specifically can do to stop fraud and abuse in your facility. What would you do if your supervisor asked you to do one of these things, like report a code for a higher level of service, or code and bill for services that were never provided? Okay. Or like Nikki mentioned, you could use an example of a Stark violation or anti-kickback, and make sure that you are protecting your facility and yourself, because CCTC does not have a bail bonds fund. So we cannot help you pay for the attorney to get you out of the trouble that I'm trying to teach you to stay out of the trouble so you don't get in the trouble that you would need an attorney. Okay?
Okay.
Good. All right. Yes, this chapter, chapter 5, professional liability and malpractice. And you do have a direct impact on issues of professional liability. And the law that probably hits closest to home for your professional proper practice is the False Claims Act, because that's you guys, okay? You guys are doing the coding and you are creating the claims, which is a legal document, and submitting that. And that accuracy of what you put on that claim is it. That's either kosher or fraud. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Then you're gonna have your chapter 5 homework. After you read the chapter, you're gonna do the assignment, because that's good for you to just really make sure that the important key things have gotten through into your brain cells. Okay. I know, when you do your coding classes, you can see that direct, this is what I'm going to be doing on my job. Okay. This law and ethics class is the other part of your job. It may be kind of the part that you don't see quite as much, and I hope you never see it. I hope that you don't have to deal with fraud. And you know what? I'm going to tell you something else, is which if you feel that you cannot confront somebody in your office telling you to do something fraudulent, then quit. Go find another job. Okay? Because I know how hard that is to confront somebody and say, you know what? And that's why I always like to say, take an educational point of view and say, we learned in school, or I know for a fact that let me explain to you why we can't really do that, because it's illegal. Okay? However you want to handle it. I'm not saying you absolutely have to look somebody in the eye and say, what you're telling me to do is unlawful, and I will not participate in your criminal activities. Okay? You handle
So
it
we
the way
can't say that?
you can say that. I'm just telling you,
Okay.
I'm just trying to tell you there are other ways to handle the situation if you don't want to say that.
Okay.
All right? Options. I always like to give you options. Okay? Actually, I would like you to say that. Okay. All right. So I put some additional stuff for you, healthcare fraud and abuse. And I think I also gave you a couple of extra links in my announcements this week.
Okay.
So this is important because I know you guys, and I don't think any of you want to be criminals, and I don't want you to accidentally back into becoming a criminal. And also because we have to remember something. If you haven't learned it yet, I can guarantee you the saying, what goes around comes around, is 1,000% accurate. And I will tell you that when we work in healthcare, at some point, we become the patient. It may not be in this exact hospital or this exact doctor's office, but at some point, you are going to become a patient. And then I want you to think about, well, if I helped rip some poor patient off 10 years ago, are they going to now be ripping me off?
True.
Because that's the way life is. That's really, 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 really true. Okay. All right. Any more questions?
No, that's it.
Are you safe home now?
I just pulled in the yard.
Good. All right. Go in, have some tea, lukewarm. Don't not too hot, not too cold. Okay.
Yeah, I got some I think some rhubarb ginger tea. No, I got some white pear passion fruit tea.
Ooh. Okay. You're gonna like that. Your tooth is gonna like. Well, where your tooth used to be is gonna like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Be well. Be safe. I'll see you in the discussion boards, and you know where to find me if you have any questions. Okay.
Yep, I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.